if I had to say which is the country that had perhaps the best mathematicians, the best physicists, the best chemists, the best metallurgists, unqualified, I think I'd say the Soviet Union. Unqualified, I think I'd say the Soviet Union. And it didn't help, didn't go anywhere. It didn't go anywhere, didn't produce anything. But if you had taken a Soviet mathematician and squirreled him out of the Soviet Union, and you sent him to Palo Alto, and he spent 2 weeks there, he was producing added value like that. So the need for a market-friendly, a business-friendly, an entrepreneur-friendly environment is absolutely essential. And it by itself will produce science and technology. Whereas the other way around doesn't necessarily happen. Now we're at 37, and we're catching up to Japan. It won't take us long. Past them. Which you might think is amazing. And I have to say, 37,000? That's it? We who have the largest component of high-tech in any economy in the world, we're about 13% of our people are in high-tech. 13%. Okay, that's very, very big to be directly involved in high-tech. It's a very large number. Okay, that's very, very big to be directly involved in high-tech. It's a very large number. And we're only $37,000 per capita income? You're listening, Puyo. Yeah, because it's absurd. Because we should be a lot more, and we will be a lot more. Now, there's a great change that's happening in the world. A tremendous change. Because the intersection of big data, connectivity, and artificial intelligence, and what it does in robotics and genetics and all the other fields, Louis, that you mentioned, everything, that is changing our world in rapid succession. And the future belongs to those who can seize this change. And the future belongs to those who can seize this change. We are positioned right at the cusp of this change, right at the center of this change. We are positioned right at the cusp of this change, right at the center of this change. We can take it, and we are. It's changing us. It's giving us powers and prowess that we never had before. It's giving us powers and prowess that we never had before. It is a force multiplier. Because to survive and thrive, we have to overcome a simple problem. The problem is, there aren't that many Jews in the world. There aren't that many Jews in the world. Our numbers are small. And history favors large nations, not small ones. So we have to compensate for our relative numbers. And we've always compensated with our brains and with our guts. But we're in a position now to compensate beyond anything that we dreamed of. But we're in a position now to compensate beyond anything that we dreamed of. And that depends on one thing. It depends on entrepreneurship. Now you might think I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. It depends on our ability to harness the genius of our people, the citizens of Israel, and make them produce enterprises. And enterprises that intersect entrepreneurship and technology. This is where the future belongs. If you only talk about science and technology, talk to me about the Soviet Union. They didn't have entrepreneurship. They didn't have thousands of startups. Israel is doing that, and Israel has to do more of that. I decided about 5 years ago that Israel would be one of the top 5 cyber powers. Now we have government investment. We spend anyway. Every year we invest in and some other investments that we make in our national intelligence services. They're actually quite big. They're actually quite big. They're actually quite big. They're much, much bigger than you think. They're much, much bigger than you think. They're bigger than most of the country's national collection agencies. And in fact, they're almost number two, maybe even number two. I haven't checked Russia and China. This is very big. This is very big. This is very big. And what we've decided to do was to take, and now don't be offended, we decided to take Shmone Matayim and put the headquarters right into Ben Gurion University. Because I want to develop the Negev. And we're taking the national cyber headquarters and we're putting it in the same place. And within 100 yards you have university, security, government security, and a cyber park that is filling up with the biggest companies that are coming to the Negev. That is filling up with the biggest companies that are coming to the Negev. We are taking government investment, sunk investment, and connecting it to academia, and most importantly, to entrepreneurship. I went down there. There are startups in Beersheba, and I wanted to show Steve Forbes what we're doing, because we are doing things that are quite amazing. Israel this year is going to have about a quarter of the global cyber investment, non-governmental private investment in cybersecurity in the world. 25%. Non-governmental private investment in cybersecurity in the world. 25%. Now you think about it. There are 8 billion people in the world. We have 8 million citizens, which means we're punching well above our weight, more than 200 times above our weight. In cyber. And cyber is a real domain of power. Cyber is a real domain of power. Real domain of power. It's a huge domain of power. We're definitely in the top 5 cyber powers in the world. I think it's safe to say we're not number 5. And I'd argue we're not number 4, and then from here on we can start arguing. He said, Prime Minister, you don't recognize me? I said, well, who are you? He said, well, I used to be your Shmone Matayim, your NSA advisor, briefer on certain technology matters. Shmone Matayim, your NSA advisor, briefer on certain technology matters. I said, really? What are you doing now? And he looks at me like this. He says, now I'm rich. Not good. That's very good. It's exactly right. He makes the country rich. How to make solar energy, how to make water, how to make public health, everything. They're making our lives richer and better, more productive. But they're not doing it as government agents. They're doing it as entrepreneurs. And our future depends on our ability to marry technology with entrepreneurship. This is the most important thing that we can be doing. And therefore, I think that what you're doing today is critical. Israel now is a cyber power, it's a water power, it's a water power, it's a water power, it's a solar power, it's an agricultural power, it's a milk power. Can you imagine? You know which cow produces most milk per cow in the world? You think it's a Dutch cow? It's a French cow? It's an American cow? Almost. It's an Israeli cow. It's a computerized cow. Every moo is computerized. This makes Israel very powerful. This makes Israel very powerful. And here's the main point. Because we have a thriving economy based on entrepreneurship, we can pay for the submarines and the airplanes and the intelligence services that make us very powerful. We can talk about our military prowess, but it's meaningless without the ability to pay for it. And as much as I value, and I do, Every penny that comes from our great ally, the United States, and we just signed an important deal, and as much as I value, and I do, every penny that comes from our great ally, the United States, and we just signed an important deal, an MOU, that is a very small part of our national expenditure on security. We simply cannot afford our security if we don't have a thriving economy. Because we have a thriving economy, a free economy, and we have to make it free, we have a strong military. And the combination of having a strong military and strong security services means that many countries want our assistance against the plague of terror, our assistance against the plague of terror, and many countries want our assistance to develop the technologies of the future which they need for their civilian purposes. And as a result, having the military on one side and the civilian technology on the other produces the third element of our national strength, which is alliances. These are the same alliances, which is alliances. These are the same alliances that we see now developing in Asia, in the countries of Africa, in Latin America. And that's why what UNESCO is doing is a thing of the past, literally, not of the real past, of a false past. And they don't even know it. Entrepreneurship is a central cog in this machine. I think you should be commended for doing it. I don't think it comes as a surprise, Uri, because you started from nothing and did a lot. But I think with the assistance of Sheldon and Miri, you're going to do a great deal, not merely for this institution, but for the future of Israel and the future of the Jewish people. They're linked. I thank you all for what you're doing. Thank you very much. Toda rabah. Giving us powers and prowess that we never had before. It's giving us powers and prowess that we never had before. But we're in a position now to compensate beyond anything that we dreamed of. But we're in a position now to compensate beyond anything that we dreamed of. And some other investments that we make in our national intelligence services. They're actually quite big. They're actually quite big. They're actually quite big. They're much, much bigger than you think. They're much, much bigger than you think. This is very big. This is very big. This is very big. And cyber is a real domain of power. And cyber is a real domain of power. Real domain of power.
Judah, your brothers will praise you. Your hand will be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons will bow down to you. You are a lion's cub, Judah. You return from the prey, my son. Like a lion, he crouches and lies down. Like a lioness who dares to rouse him. The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until he to whom it belongs shall come, and the obedience of the nations shall be his.
Cyber is a real domain of power. Cyber is a real domain of power. Cyber is a real domain of power.
Deafening silence. Perhaps you can understand.
It's giving us powers and prowess that we never had before. It's giving us powers and prowess that we never had before. And cyber is a real domain of power. And cyber is a real domain of power. Real domain of power.
Perhaps you can understand